Start the recording and we'll get going. Okay. Good morning, everybody. I am calling this meeting of the Public Safety Communications Task Force to order. It is 11:17 on January 31st, 2024. As a reminder, the meeting's being recorded and that recording will be posted on the task force webpage following the meeting. Let's start with a roll call of task force members. Jen Morrison is not here today, and I believe Paul White just joined. Paul, are you here?
If I can manage to get myself unmuted, yes, I'm here.
Okay, good morning. Michael Wright.
I'm here. Good morning.
Mike Dunges.
I am here. Good morning.
Okay. And Ron Kumitz. I see your hand is raised, Ron. Good morning. And Jim Mack.
Here.
Okay. Also joining us is Callie Audette as our administrative support person and our project management team from Televate, Rick Burke and Dominic Arcuri.
Morning.
So, morning. We have a few members of the public, it looks like. Stephen, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm here.
Thank you, Stephen. Philip Sisk.
Yes, good morning. Phil Sisk with Mission Critical Partners.
Morning. Richard Townend.
Good morning, Richard Townend with Alteris Technology Partners.
Good morning. And I think that covers everybody on my list. So let's move on to approval of the agenda. The agenda was distributed to task force members by email and it's also available on our webpage. Do task force members have any changes to the agenda? Okay. Hearing nothing, we'll consider the agenda approved and move on to approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes to approve. One is from the regular meeting number 17 on January 17th. Are there any changes needed to these minutes? Okay. We also need to consider the special meeting number 15 minutes from January 26, 2024. Any changes for these minutes? Okay. I will make a motion then that we approve the minutes that are listed on today's agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jim. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand or signify by saying aye.
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 All right, I am seeing all ayes, including Ron's hand being up electronically. So the minutes are approved. Okay, let's go to public comment. If you would like to make public comment, would you please raise your hand or otherwise indicate? And Stephen, I'm making an assumption that you will comment. So I'm inviting others to let me know if they would like some time. Looks like no others. So Stephen, go ahead. We've allotted 10 minutes for public comment.
I won't take 10 minutes of your time. One, just a point of process. I don't think a raised hand, ambiguous raised hand counts as an affirmative roll call vote, inconsistent with open meeting law. I think Ron needs to get his microphone working. And since he's a communications engineer, he should be able to manage that. Because he could also just have a question or a point of process or any other thing. The raised hand doesn't mean an affirmative vote. The work plan, I think it's unconscionable that the contract required a work plan by the 12th, and here it is the 29th or 30th, and we don't have a work plan. And everybody seems to just be, la-di-da, la-di-da. And that's not okay because the legislature is concerned, or some in the legislature are concerned. They're taking it up this afternoon. And we got nothing to show. And all the points I raised that were missing from the required report to the legislature were ignored by the task force. I raised specific requirements for inclusion and quoted the law that required inclusion in the report to the legislature on the 15th, and y'all ignored them. So I really wonder who's I'm getting echo now. Who's practicing due diligence here, or who's holding anybody's feet to the fire or accountable for the dysfunction of this task force? So the work plan, the legal counsel, I don't believe has still been contracted for. The subject matter experts still have not been contracted for. Don't know whether legislation pending is on the agenda for after public comment or not, but I'll wait and hear. I've raised repeatedly many policy issues. The $9 million has to be out the door this year, and it needs to be spent on regional dispatch transition. That doesn't mean just whatever the department wants for its own LMR and microwave. So this task force is supposed to consult and differentiate what is feathering the department's own nest and what is related to regional dispatch. And I have not heard these discussions. Those must be done in open session. So I don't know what else to say other than that some of y'all need to either speak up or get off the task force, and again, a proposal for expanding the task force and getting some more engaged participants is being discussed. But I think you've heard this before, and I welcome some courageous and diligent members of the task force speaking up on these topics. That's enough.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. I can address a couple of your comments right away if that's helpful. As I told you in an email this morning, the contract states that the work plan will be executed or provided within 5 days of contract signing or as agreed to by the state. The task force has a plan for addressing that work, and Televate's in agreement with us on how that's moving forward. So I would define that piece as in progress as agreed to by the state. And you're correct, the legal counsel, there has been no execution of a contract on that as yet. All right, so moving on to
Barb, can you clarify what that agreement is for when the work plan is to be available?
I can let you know that there's a meeting planned on this Friday to address some of that work. All right, we're
So
moving
there's no deliverable date. The task force has the task force voted to extend this date indefinitely?
Stephen, the task force does not have to vote to extend it. It's stated in the contract that that deliverable is due within 5 days or as agreed upon by the state. And we
But
are
who
now,
is the state? The state
Stephen,
is the task force.
we are going to
The
move
task
on to new business
Yeah.
now. We're moving on.
Yeah.
Okay, under new business, we received, and task force members should have received an email from Callie, I think yesterday, a letter from a group of legislators in the Addison and Rutland County area. Let me pull that up and we can take a look at it as a group. Okay. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Hopefully task force members have had a chance to review the letter. I'm looking for impressions or comments. My thought is that we can reply to this group with a status of the pilot project work. and also provide some clarification upon on the use of that $9 million or the allowable uses of the 9 million. But other thoughts, comments on that? Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this is maybe just me being petty, but I noticed that this letter was addressed to the two co-chairs and to me, dated 12 days ago. And I don't know how they transmitted the letter, but the first time I saw it was when I got it from Callie yesterday. So I'm not sure what their intent was there. And my second thing that I noticed was this is not signed by the entire Rutland and Addison County delegations. It's signed by the Rutland County senators, one of the two Addison County senators, and two Rutland County representatives. Well, there are quite a few members not included on this so-called letter from the delegation or the caucuses. But beyond that, more to the crux of it, I was going back many months, I was a strong proponent of getting pilot project going. But since there was no entity jumping up saying, pick me, I want to be the pilot project, I backed off from that. So I'm curious to see what they seem to think, that there is somebody ready and waiting in the wings in Rutland City that wants to take this on. But I have not heard that from anybody.
Right, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, great. So I did happen to have a conversation with a couple of these people. I think a response to the letter as to our status, where we are at currently, our process with our subject matter experts and our project managers, as well as maybe even passing along the information about where we are with the legal RFP as well would be good for an update. The conversations that I had in response to this also included the discussion around the limiting factors of the 9 million and what's being done there. The reception was good. I think there's willingness to listen and hear what's going on. What I said, to the people that came to my office for this discussion is pilot projects are not off the table. We aren't at that stage yet. We don't even have a level of governance that we've established yet because our subject matter expert has not been hired and has not done their investigation. And now I know that I've come into this kind of fresh, where a lot of you have been working on this for several years. But the approach that I took with the people that I represented, that I think we may want to consider in our response to the greater group, is that we are taking a metered approach. We are using these contracts and these subject matter experts to put together what the package should and would look like. And then at some point, a pilot project may or could be a part of the solution or the next steps of the solution. But I think that we are almost starting at ground zero here instead of starting 2 years in, which is some of the perception, I think, that is out there. So the fact that we're starting at ground zero with a new task force and a new procedure and a new set of policies and process, things are moving slower than people would like to see, but we are doing it, in my opinion. And again, I share this as my opinion, that the task force is doing it to the best of their ability and with the appropriate process so that we are not going to have the gaps and mistakes that they are actually fearing in this situation. So I think providing that information would be valuable. I think a status update would be valuable, and a next steps in the response saying, here's what's next on our list would be valuable for them to hear. And that the pilot projects are not off the table, I think would be valuable for them to hear as well. I did share my opinion that I think Rutland is ready and ripe for a pilot project when the time comes, and whether that's leveraging the resources that we already have in our Rutland City Police Department or establishing a new entity. I hope that the governance that the subject matter experts recommend to us and what we choose from that will guide that process as we move forward. So I know that was long-winded. I apologize, but I do think that there's an appropriate response in some of that information that I shared.
Yes, I think there is. That's a lot of good information and things to include in the kind of a comprehensive response to them so they know where we stand and where we think we're going anyway. So I can work on pulling together a response that perhaps Jen and Paul and I can collaborate on to make sure we've got all the bases covered. Paul, to answer your question, I became aware of the letter, I think it was 2 days ago, Monday. I believe it was faxed to the commissioner's office, and on that day, on Monday. So I'm not sure if there was another mechanism of delivery that I don't know about, but that was the first I'd heard of it as well. Or
Okay.
seen the letter, I should say.
Yeah, I had heard that there was one being batted around, but
Right,
I didn't know that it was actually sent to anybody.
right,
But
yeah,
regardless, here it is.
right. Okay, so does that sound like the best plan, to put together a draft response and kind of circulate it between Jen and Paul and me?
Yes.
Okay. And is the task force okay with us sending that when it's complete, or do you want to see it again? Our next meeting's not scheduled for 2 weeks.
I don't think I need to necessarily see it to approve it in advance. I'd be happy to see it, but not necessarily to approve it.
Barb, do you want to give us like the draft and then give us like a response window? And if no one responds with any comments, then you can send it. Like that'll give us the ability to give you a little feedback if we need to, but you know.
Yeah, I'm going to do a quick check-in with Paul here about whether or not that's we're able to do that, or kind of have a conversation by email. I think it might be an open meeting law problem.
Got it. I think if you individually respond.
Yeah, I mean, we're not asking for a vote. We're not asking for a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I think we're just saying this is the draft as we have it. If anybody has any concerns, make them known by, tomorrow at 5. And if we hear from nobody, it'll be sent. I'm personally comfortable with that.
Okay.
And just don't hit reply all when you send your
Right.
replies, right? So just hit individual reply.
Right. And if it appears there needs to be a broader discussion about it, we can call a meeting and do that, have that discussion. So, okay, fair enough.
Good.
All right. Anything else on this topic from task force members? Okay. I do also, under new business, want to make you aware that we've been actually, the commissioner, Paul, and I were asked to testify today at Senate Finance on a status of the task force work. I'll be doing that testimony. Jen's not available and Paul won't be available. So I will be going over the legislative report that we provided to them, and hopefully answering any questions they may have, or bringing back questions if I need additional input from the commissioner or Paul. Okay, so moving on. Well, let me ask this. Do task force members have any other new business? Okay, so moving on then to next agenda item is executive session for the purpose of discussing one or more contracts. So I will start us off by making a motion that the task force find that sharing information about bidder responses publicly would put the task force at a substantial disadvantage in making a decision about awarding a contract or contracts. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jim. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of making that finding, please raise your hand or indicate by saying aye. And I see all task force hands are up. All right, so the next step then is I will make a motion that we move into executive session for the purpose of discussing one or more contracts, and that the Televate project management team be included in that executive session. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Thanks, Jim. All in favor, raise your hand or indicate by saying aye. All hands are up. So we will move into executive session via the other link. And Callie, you can do your usual notifications to our to our guests for when we return. All right, we'll see you in the other link. Thanks.
Barb, before I ditch my phone connection, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, Ron. Yes.
Oh, all right, that problem's gone.
Okay, we'll see you in the other link.